Hey guys, how's it going? Astrofeminist here, back with a foodie beauty video, actually this time around. Last one did really awesome for whatever reason, whether it be my sass or the algorithm, or maybe the actual content was good. Who knows? Maybe I'm actually good at something. We love good imposter syndrome. Anyway, today we are doing a foodie beauty video that's a tad older. It's from 10 days ago as of filming on the 12th. Kind of gotta confess, I am pre-recording videos because I'm going to be very busy later this holiday season, so I'm hopefully going to schedule this for the weekend before Christmas. If you're watching this then, Merry Christmas and Happy Hanukkah. I know those are kind of the two things going on right now. Also, Merry Yule for anybody who's celebrating. We love the return of the light. So this is a video that I kind of wanted to react to because it's called Canadian Culture Shock in Kuwait with a sort of crazy wide-eyed emoji face. Foodie Beauty supposedly is having culture shock in Kuwait over things that the rest of the world has. So, this is a 20-minute video, so a bit longer than the one we reacted to last time. I think that was in like the mid-teens, like 15-minute-ish long. Got her on 1.25. Might have to turn her up to 1.5. She does talk fairly slow, a little slower than Amber. Way slower than me. So, anyway, let's just jump right into it.
Hey guys, welcome back to another video. This feels weird because it's like a sit down and talk video, and I haven't made
I mean, all your videos are kind of sit down and talk videos. Anyway.
one of these in a little while, but I like doing them once in a while just to talk about certain subjects. So today's subject is going to be cultural differences. I get asked a lot to talk about cultural differences between here and Canada. If you're new here, I am Canadian. I'm from Ottawa, Ontario. Born and raised in Canada, and I recently married a Syrian man, Salah. He is
Marriage of convenience arc. She actually let it slip in a video, basically, that, like, she's been calling Salah her boyfriend a lot lately, and then she said, I forget what exactly she said, but she said something in a video on, like, the 11th or whatever that kind of implied that it's not a real marriage, which kind of having the call come from inside the house saying what we knew all along, but, you know, they just, you can very easily tell that they do not really love each other like they should for a newly married couple.
Syrian who was born and raised in Kuwait. So
Also, for context, hello, I am a white lady. I totally lost my train of thought of how I was going to phrase what I was going to say, so. I am a American. I was born in technically the southern United States. I'm a Zoomer. I went to school in Tennessee for 2 years, and now I'm back in the great state of Maryland. I sort of live in the DC metro area right now. I'm originally from the Eastern Shore, though. So that's my context on all of this. So anything that's from America that she thinks is special to Kuwait, I could easily call out, just to give a demographic reference for myself with this reaction.
I'm currently in Kuwait, and I get asked a lot, basically, if there's any kind of culture shock. So I'm sure you guys want to know my perception of the society, how I compare things with the Western world where I'm from, and what it's just been like for me on this journey so far. Honestly, there's not as much culture shock as I imagined because I did do some research before I came here out of respect. I always want to be respectful of different cultures and their customs. So if I ever travel anywhere, it's going to be important for me to respect these differences. To me, differences, especially cultural, are not bad. It's just that they're differences, and that's what they are. So I try to embrace everything and try to understand everything that I can. We don't always have to agree with things when things are different and we're not used to them, or things we don't understand, but it's still important to respect them. So I'm going to talk about some things, some misconceptions I believed before coming here, some things that I found very different, and then some things that some information I got from the Kuwait visa website, which makes sense. It's where you can go and get an e-visa from a select list of countries. If your country's on there, you can apply online to get a tourist visa here. Kuwait is a lot more open to tourism than it was in the past, and compared to a lot of other Middle Eastern countries as well. But the information was on the website probably to prepare travelers from different parts of the world as to what you can expect when it comes to different cultural customs here. So I'll just share some of this information with you if you are thinking of coming here, because this place is beautiful, as you've seen from our vlogs. The beaches.
Also, I want to apologize if there's like weird horizontal flashing on her video, because that's not me, that's her. That's on her end. It's just in the frame of the video on my monitor.
Everything, just the food, the people are so friendly. It's amazing here. So yes.
The people are so friendly, but they've killed thousands of people trying to build that stadium for the World Cup and don't consider gay people human, but they're so friendly!
Let's get into it. That's kind of going to be all over the place in my style of doing a video, but anyway, one of the biggest things I was surprised about, I thought for some reason, probably like a lot of people, I was ignorant a lot when it came to thinking of the Middle East. I thought of like everyone in the Middle East just being like much poorer than Canada or the US, and it's just like a really small way of thinking, but that's how I thought. And I thought, oh, you know, like I'm Canadian, my money's gonna go a long way there. And it's actually like Kuwait is like the fifth richest country in the world, from what I read. But their currency is worth a lot more than Canadian.
I will back that up. I was very surprised to learn how much the Kuwaiti dinar is because as an American, I'm used to my money going really far. It goes further than the Canadian dollar by a good bit. I think like 25 to 50% depending on what you're buying. And I was very shocked to learn that the Kuwaiti dinar is worth a whole like 350 US approximately. Like I'm not used to my money being worth that little. I'm used to being like, oh, this is probably worth like for instance, like I'm freaking like Norway is my freaking spirit place. I don't know why, but I know the Norwegian kroner is worth like, how do I want to put this? It's like 10 Norwegian kroner per US dollar, so it's worth about 10% of the US dollar. So I'm used to stuff like that. And I think like the euro is only worth like 1.1 US dollars, so that's like it's still pretty close. But yeah. Or maybe that's the other way around, I don't quite remember. So I was very shocked as well to learn that my money was worth so little there. Also, I think there is also, and I think it's probably September 11th rhetoric, anti-Middle East rhetoric. Americans kind of assume, most of us probably, including myself for a while, kind of assume that the Middle East and like North Africa are just kind of like flat desert, nothing there. Everyone's in like freaking clay shacks, and you know, there's no like metropolitan infrastructure and you know riverways and water and plants and things. Whereas there's quite a few places, like a lot of like major cities in the Middle East and North Africa that are quite affluent and very, very, if anything, more classy than a lot of American places. I think the only like 7-star hotel in the world is in Dubai. So, you know, us Americans just do not have it. And especially infrastructure wise, we're just completely lacking on that, which hopefully the bill that came through this year will definitely help with that because the bridges and roadways here are just a freaking mess. But yeah, let's continue.
Money. So like, for example, 1 KD equals like 4.4 Canadian dollars. So if you do the math, so yeah, when it comes to money, I just try not to really deal with it as much as I can because it really confuses me. And my money's not worth much here, so it's better to like save as much as I can just for when I'm in Canada because it's just worth more there. Another
You've been there for 5 weeks. It's just math. Like, just divide or multiply whatever you're buying in Kuwaiti dinars by like 4.5, and that's the Canadian price, and that's how you can tell if it's a good deal or not. It's really not that complicated, especially for someone that's been there a month. Like, I went to Spain for like, what, 10 days, and I got the euro to US conversion down because it was like 1.1 either way at the time. Math is hard. Maths are hard for Chantal, I guess.
thing I won't do here is drive. I've already talked about that in my live streams ad nauseum, so I'm not going to talk about that. But I do not want to drive here. We'll just leave that up to Sala. So, all right, another.
I'm guessing by that they drive on the other side of the road, or I know at least in like one of the few things. There's 2 things that watching it will genuinely give me anxiety, and it's cave diving videos and watching people drive in like New Delhi where there's just no rules. But at least in like from what we see in the vlogs, it seems like people are pretty civilized with the driving. Like there's proper lanes on the roads and like intersections and stuff. Like it's just maybe they do drive like quote unquote on the other side of the road than Americans and Canadians. But other than that, I don't see why she would be concerned about that. But also, she probably isn't allowed to drive. I'm not sure about the visa rules if you can drive on a visitor visa.
Another thing I found different is the reversal of weather, climate changes. Obviously, it's so hot here. Right now, it's winter months here, so it's actually in like the 20s, but the sun is really hot during the day sometimes. And at night, it's really nice out. It's like in the 20s, it's perfect weather, not too humid most times. But in the summer, it's unbearable, up to like 60. I think I heard like 60 to 3 degrees Celsius. You could fry an egg on the ground. Most people.
I mean, has she been to Arizona? See, this is the thing. This is one of those things that I can kind of laugh at Europeans about because, like, Europe is so small compared to the U.S., so the climate isn't really vastly different. I guess unless you're going from like Italy to like Sweden, maybe, but like people do not understand how vastly different the entirety of the United States is, like culturally, especially weather, right? Because like I want to go to grad school in upstate New York. It's always kind of cloudy and snowy and rainy there, which I don't necessarily mind, but a lot of people can't stand that shit. But then there's someone like me who personally I could never, and it sucks because there's a lot of astronomy stuff out there, but I could never move like west of the Rockies unless I'm going to like Seattle because like the Southwest United States to me is an absolute hellscape. They're running out of water. It's flat everywhere except for like the Rockies and the Grand Canyon and stuff. But most of the livable area is just flat desert, arid crap with no trees. Like maybe there's some cacti, but there's like no actual trees and grass and stuff. That sounds like me asking for more depression than I already have. And I don't want that, right? So, and they're known for like baking cookies in their car and frying eggs on the ground. So, Chantal, it's not that crazy to be able to fry an egg on the ground, especially with the bullshit climate change that's going on. Anyway, let's continue.
The weather is not comfortable in the summer here, to where people tend to live inside the malls, inside their homes with air conditioning. There's AC everywhere, cars, jobs. It's just you wouldn't be able to. It would be like living in Canada in the winter months without a heater. It's very, very opposite that way. In Canada, a lot of the time it'll go down to like minus 30, 35 sometimes. You can't be outside for very long in that. You need to be in the heat. Here it's the reverse. It's so hot, you need to be in the AC. And because of that, certain things are different. Like camping in the winter here. We don't camp in the winter in Canada. We camp in the summer. Things like corn, certain things that are in harvest, like corn.
So 63 degrees Celsius is 145.4 degrees Fahrenheit, which that's a lie. First of all, I think she's being hyperbolic because Googling it, it'll tell you that the world's hottest temperature ever recorded was in California in the United States, and it was 134 degrees Fahrenheit. So, as far as I'm concerned, Chantal can eat a dick because because literally the hottest temperatures on the earth, and especially like most of the year. Like Death Valley and Kuwait could probably have a fight about who's got the worst summers cuz Death Valley easily gets up to like 120 degrees heat index in the summer. So I don't know why she's thinking that, the hot temperatures are such a culture shock. Like she's obviously never been to the southern United States. I would love to see her go to Florida during the summer. Holy crap. Because not only is Florida hot, it is muggy. It is humid as shit in the summer in Florida. And Chantal would have a horrible time. She would be wishing for that Kuwaiti dry heat if she went to Florida for a summer.
Corn is really big in the winter here, more at the end of summer in Canada. Mating season for animals, for cats, winter, and in Canada it's in the spring, beginning of summer. So just like little differences like that, I find very interesting. We'll say.
On this edition of Kuwaiti Bees, Chantal learns about how geography works.
And again, this information, I say this with utmost respect to Kuwaiti Arab culture in general. It's very different. It's very different with values. It's at least Kuwait, very conservative values, very conservative country. It's an Islamic country. 75% of people are Muslim. However, there are different religions here, and that remaining 25% of people are allowed to practice freely. You have seen in the grocery stores the Santa Claus, the Bath and Body Works had Christmas things. So they do have they have respect for people who want to practice different religions, though mostly they practice in their homes or things like that. It's predominantly.
Yeah, and I'm willing to bet the reason that they practice a lot of their homes is even though legally they might have freedom of religion, they probably get heckled in the streets if they wear a cross on their neck. I'm sure it's the, flip reverse of what it's probably like here in the U.S., especially I crap on the southern United States, but let's be real, it's the Bible Belt for a reason, and it's very conservative Republican. So, the math adds up. That, while we do have freedom of religion here in the United States, and especially on a more institutional scale nowadays, you can't really free practice. Like, if I have a sweatshirt from, oh, I don't remember what the website's called, but it says heathen season on it, and it has, like, leaves, because, like, fall is, like, Halloween and Yule and stuff, and it's pretty heathen-centric time of year, pagan-centric time of year, really, even though Christmas is a Christian holiday. It kind of rips off a lot of the symbols from Yule, especially when they proved that, Jesus was probably born in the summer from the descriptions of the Bible, but nonetheless, I carry on. And it has a pentacle on it. So the star with the circle around it, which most people think is a pentagram, but it's not. And if you do 2 seconds of Googling about pentacles, you know that they're very higher self, non-materialistic symbols, because the 5 points represent the 4 elements and then the spirit. And the spirit is the topmost point facing upwards. That means that we're putting the spirit over materialistic earthly things. But if I wore that shirt in rural Southern America, out in public, I'd probably get freaking yelled at and maybe even physically assaulted. My point being that it's probably kind of the reverse in Kuwait. Muslims might be the predominant religion, and Christians might be able to freely practice according to the state, but they probably get harassed for it. Because if you look to the neighboring countries, Christianity is straight up banned in a lot of the Middle East, and that's why there's a lot of Christian refugees in Europe, is because Europe's a very Christocentric place. And I'm not trying to trash the Middle East necessarily, that because they're Islamic, they're intolerant. Those two things don't necessarily go hand in hand. But what is legal and what the behaviors are of the general public are 2 very different things.
Prominently Muslim. So because it's an Islamic country, they practice Ramadan here. They take it very seriously. And during the month of Ramadan, even as a foreigner, anyone who lives here, and again, if you're traveling here, please keep in mind, if you're here during the month of Ramadan, a very religious month for Muslims, and there are laws that will put you in jail if you don't respect them. Even as a foreigner, you have to be respectful of that. I fully understand that. I don't have a problem with that. Someday I would like to try Ramadan. You have to fast until sundown. So if you're seen in public chewing gum, drinking, eating, unless you have like a medical exemption or something like that, mostly if you do, you still don't go in public. I think it's custom to just stay in the home, but you can be fined or arrested for not respecting those laws.
Get a kick out of seeing Chantel try and do Ramadan. Not eating for half the day until the sun goes down. Woo, boy. And it's not like it's in the middle of winter either, but even though they're really close to the equator, so the day's pretty much split half and half. Like, that would be hilarious.
Just like anywhere, if you don't respect the laws, you're gonna be in trouble, right? Some other things that are illegal in Islamic culture.
Let's see, being gay, being any sort of woman with self-confidence, those kind of things.
Things that are considered haram, such anti-Muslim. So things like pork products, alcohol, marijuana, drugs, anything like that. It's also haram for Muslims to have dogs as pets in their home. So I know that you guys, a lot of you in the Western world,
the Western world. Dude, this is like me going to Canada for like 5 months out of a 3-month, or 5 weeks out of a 3-month visa, and being like, but you guys wouldn't understand because you're in America. Bitch, shut up.
Really love pets. I have cats. I love my cats. Having cats in the home is fine. It's not usual. Just pets in general. In a lot of parts of the world, it's like that. But the Western world, we love our pets. But here, dogs, if they're useful, like hound dogs for hunting, police work, gathering sheep, things like that, that's permitted. But to have a dog in the home is haram. So that is why you see them in the zoo with other animals. On the other hand, that's very different from where I come from. But you don't realize it until you realize Canada's very secular, which means that there's no government mixing with religion to govern the country.
Cries an American Christo-fascism uprising.
I will say it's a lot more peaceful here in a lot of ways. I think that my personal belief is because of these laws in place, the big conservative placement of value, respect. I think a lot of the reasons that alcohol and drugs and things like that are haram is because it's damaging to the mind and body and to the spirit. And if you're religious, you and you value God and you value yourself, you won't want to hurt yourself with substances. And that has been really meaningful in my journey to recovery as an addict, which I do still struggle with, just mostly with food here and there. But when I was back at home and substances are readily available, you can overindulge on everything over there. And it's it's a different vibe. Like, again, I've heard people say it's it's there's so many like big malls and things, so it's like flashy like Vegas, but minus the debauchery. And I have to agree with that. You don't see people falling over drunk here, throwing up on the street, making jerks of themselves, and it's you just don't you just don't see it here. And it's a very peaceful vibe. You hear the prayer on the street, people just respecting everything, and I don't know. I find it very peaceful here in a way that I guess unless you live it, you don't really might not really understand it. That's why I like traveling the world and being more interested in different cultures, because it opens your mind to a lot of things that you never would think about living in the same geographical location for your whole life, you know?
So a couple things. One, she's this vast world traveler who's been to like very, very multiple countries, when in reality she's been to Montreal, different province in Canada, Cuba, earlier this year, same year, 8 months ago, and Kuwait. So 2 countries in a single year, and she's this big world traveler. Second of all, she's fully recovered from food addiction, when we damn know that if she had no monetary restrictions and no reputation pressure, she would definitely binge on food again, and I think she's going to do exactly that when she gets back to Canada in January. Third of all, this is giving the same vibes, the whole like it's peaceful but there's restrictions. It's kind of giving me the same vibe of when I learned about Singapore for the first time, and like the intricacies of that country. That was sort of our main what do you want to call it, focus group when I was in an authoritarianism class as an elective in college about a year and a half ago. Because Singapore is on the surface a very cool country. There's a lot of technological advancement. They're really into like vertical gardening there because it's basically an island nation. They don't have a lot of space. They're working on wireless electricity, which oh, that's one of the few things that I'm like kind of a boomer about and don't really want to touch, because it kind of worries me on a human health level. It's a gorgeous country. Like the buildings and the nature and the people are really respectful and all that stuff, and it, on the surface, looks like a really nice place to live. And to be fair, I think I would actually visit Singapore because they're not as strict as with women in particular as laws in the Middle East for visitors. But Singapore has a huge sort of big brother complex where everything about you is known. Like, I think the government has access to like your internet history, and there's surveillance everywhere, and there's laws restricting what you can and can't do. Again, I don't think it's as strict as the Middle East in terms of like drinking and whatnot, but it's still really strict. And we, in that class, we had a huge conversation of like, would you be willing to give up freedoms for national safety? Value safety and all that kind of stuff. Because she talks about the Middle East as if, they just restrict alcohol, and you have to be respectful of Muslim religion and culture. But what she's not mentioning is, human exploitation, basically modern day slavery that occurs there, like I mentioned with the World Cup there. Thousands of people have died from building this complex for the World Cup because they don't have anything like OSHA here in the States where they have workers' rights. So they're probably having them working around the clock, and when you have people that are underslept and underpaid and overworked, there's going to be accidents and there's going to be deaths because of that. Second of all, like I mentioned, there's no women's rights. Well, there's some, but very, very minimal. And, I'm sure in many cases of, unconsensual adult activities put upon women, women are still blamed for that in a majority of the Middle East. And also, there's no rights for LGBT plus people there. Like, you could get thrown in prison or even executed if you're a part of the LGBT plus community. So, she acts like the Middle East is such a peaceful place, but it's because they literally suppress and just execute anybody who disagrees with them. I could not live in a place like that. I might, crap on America as much as I want, but one of the things that I really am thankful as an American, and that we sort of set precedent with in the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, is that we have freedom of speech, and it shall not be infringed upon by the government. You can criticize the government all you want. I could say Joe Biden's a shitty president, which partially I do think that's true, because he made a lot of promises that he's not keeping. And look at that. I'm not gonna get, imprisoned by the government for that. I get there are limitations, like you can't say that you're gonna unalive the president. You cannot say that. And big disclaimer, obviously, I have no intention of doing so, because I'm not. Why would I want to? Because that is, a threat of violence and stuff, like how you can't shout fire in a crowded theater, because, the consequences of you doing that are going to be worse than any imprisonment or punishment that you're going to get from being restricted from saying that, right? It's about, it's a reduction of harm kind of thing. So I could never live in a country like that. And Chantal acting like this is just a simple black and white matter is. It's kind of disgusting. As someone who is a part of the LGBT plus community and is a woman, I could never imagine even visiting a country in the Middle East. Really just kind of whitewashing what is going on over there, because she is living a decent life over there.
I will say, I do see a lot of comments. People are in disbelief with a past like my own, coming from such an open place. With a past like mine, how can we make it work? And I have to say, Sal has been nothing but just like so open to, he sees the changes in me, he's supportive of it, and he actually helps. Like I've said many times, being with someone who helps you on this healing process, recognizes that you have a good heart and a willingness to change and respect yourself more, and it's just made such a difference in this journey. I'm not perfect and I'm still struggling sometimes. Change is not linear, and it's
also just a word here. She puts Allah and God like they're different people. Kind of just dumb.
Not overnight. If everyone's patient with me, I think I'm on the right track. I feel it. One thing, speaking of acceptance and friendliness and big hearts, is how welcoming people are. One of the cultural customs is hospitality. People are so nice, and even people here who have hardly anything, or just even if they're struggling, or even if, no matter what walk of life or financial situation they have, if you are welcomed into someone's home, they will treat you like royalty. They will share their best food with you. They will just be so friendly and welcoming. And it's just, like you've seen on my live stream, neighbors will bring us like olives at midnight, or just anytime they quickly think of you, they bring you food. And so I've kind of learned, okay, you know what? I like this, and I'm going to share too. So whenever somebody brings us something and the dish is empty, now we fill it with something and give it back. So it's they rely on this kind of community of friendliness to help each other.
So she's saying that hospitality and thankfulness are exclusive to Kuwaiti culture? That's bullshit. I literally just had a session? What? No, that's not the right word. I had a get together with some friends at their apartment, and, my friend was like, oh, I want to make tacos. Do you want to make tacos? And I was like, oh, that'd be lovely. Thank you for doing that. Do you need me to buy any ingredients for said tacos? And she said, oh yeah, we don't have any like leafy greens in the house. And I didn't, find any when I went to the store last. And so I said, okay, I'll get those. Because, if you're going to somebody's house and they're making you food, you should contribute to the food cost, especially in this economy. That's not a uniquely Middle Eastern thing. That's pretty much like a universal thing. Like vast majority of the places in the world. Because humans have grown on community. We evolved with community. We thrived because of community. And contributing to that and thanking people for that, that's common decency everywhere. What? She's so delusional. I think she stayed in her hidey hole in her villa apartment bedroom the whole time and got her food delivered through a phone, that she's not used to socializing properly like this. At least in a long, long time. I cannot believe this.
Being said, I did learn that it's custom. If somebody offers you something in their home, try not to turn it down, because usually they're offering you something they're proud of making, or something. Like we went to someone's home and they offered, I wasn't hungry and I was kind of full because they made us like some food, and we just had dinner, but they offered me like on top of that like a fresh banana smoothie, and I was like with some fresh bananas they just got, and I said no. No thank you. And they kind of looked at me like, like didn't really understand, and then they offered me again later, so I did say yes that time, and it was delicious. But also, if you're eating and you don't want to eat anymore, be sure to leave a bit of food on your plate, because they'll just keep filling your plate with food. Like, people really like to feed people here and be nice, and it's like a heartwarming feeling I can't explain. It's such a peaceful culture. Peaceful culture maybe for you. Again,
whole big elephant in the room with the culture there. Yeah, I guess I'll give her that. I know that generally, I think it's, like Italian people and, kind of South Europe and North Africa. I think that is generally a thing where, if you reject food, they'll kind of be offended. I don't think that's as much of a thing here in the United States. If I ever do that, I'll be like, oh my gosh, no, I'm so full, and like, kind of be like that, or I'll be like, oh yeah, I'll just have a little bit, like, kind of thing, because I don't want to be rude and say no. But, I'll kind of agree with that. I know people in the Western world, which kind of correct about that, but at least in like United States, I can say that people aren't as sensitive if you reject food that they have made. Especially because, dietary restrictions exist. Like, I had a friend who just completely tried to get off gluten, and that was a whole thing where, like, you realize how much shit has gluten in it, and yeah. Anyway, let's continue.
Religion, the people are so amazing. And yes, it seems conservative probably to people in the Western world, but as long as you're respectful.
Because it is conservative. It literally is. They literally only give, like, rich, affluent men full human rights. That's the definition of conservative with that kind of stuff.
There should be no problem.
I'm, like, aggressively hitting the spacebar now because I'm getting mad.
Same thing if you want, like, if you're having coffee. It's custom, like, after meals to have some tea or Arabic coffee with some, like, salty seeds, like sunflower seeds or nuts. But if you don't like, this is more for men who do this. Men, if you're done drinking, you have to shake your glass because people will just keep filling it. One thing I see a lot is talk about the differences between men and women. So even on the website, the visa website, it does say Kuwait, like a lot of Islamic countries, are predominantly patriarchal, meaning they're male dominated.
Yes. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see what Chantal has for this.
But I find that Kuwait is a lot more open compared to some countries. Like,
How?
women can drive and things like that now. They're in the workforce with equal pay. There are certain...
See, I would like to actually see evidence of that, because I know even here in the United States that there's still, because, newsflash, for anyone who doesn't know, unless it's like a major corporation, I literally watched my employer at Michael's type in the hourly wage on the computer when they were rehiring me for another summer. So it's not like the machine assigns it. Like, a lot of times it's a human that inputs that specific value. So there is definitely room for women to get underpaid, and I know that still happens here in the United States. Same position, even women that have been in positions for longer, a man will get hired in the same position and get paid more with less experience. It happens here. I'm sure it happens over in Kuwait.
Things that women and men do separate, and in my vlog that's all that I meant, but I did edit out that part because I felt like I wasn't explaining it properly. First of all, men and women, it's custom that they socialize separately, usually, especially in public. In the home, it's different. In the home, you can do whatever you want, you can dress however you want. You're married, you're together, it's your private home. But in public, there's certain customs. And in my video, I just meant we were just doing things separately. Actually, the women can smoke shisha if they want to. It's a personal choice. What I'm wearing is a personal choice. Women, I would say...
In public, I don't think it's probably a personal choice. I think she would get kind of at least stared at if she didn't wear a hijab in public. Also, is she saying separate but equal? Because, Chantal, you probably don't know because you're from fucking Canada and don't, at least in specifically Chantal's case, know anything about your civil rights legislation. But here in America, we specifically had a case that proved separate but equal is not equal. And it's probably the case in Kuwait. I'm sure if you go to, the McDonald's or whatever, or maybe probably a smaller business that doesn't have as strict corporate regulations, and you go to like the men's dining room versus the women's dining room, you'll probably have a worse experience in the women's dining room because separate but equal is not equal. Okay? Get that in your head.
There are women, mostly from other cultures. There's a large Indian and Filipino population here. A lot of them don't cover because they're not Arab or they're not Muslim. And the ones who are, though, I usually see them always in hijab, and a lot of women I've seen in niqab as well. So back to the men and women doing separate things, there's actually a custom called Diawania. I had to practice that a few times, so that's maybe why there's a jump cut there. Diawania is gathering of men at where they socialize, at cafes, smoke shisha together, have drinks, non-alcoholic, and just socialize together. Again, it's...
So it's a boys' night. That's not specific to Kuwait either.
Very conservative that way, which is
That's not conservative. That's just a boys' night. Like, and I'll agree. You have a group of all guys and a group of all women. They're gonna act differently than if you mix them together. And sometimes people like those separate vibes. I'm personally a fan of having a collection of women talk about our experiences because they are very different from men's, even here in the United States. So that's fine. Just don't act like it's unique to Kuwait because they have, different rules for men and women that are very, very obvious.
is why we also deleted some things that, I'm learning. So if I do something that's a little bit out of the norm or a little questionable, it's just out of ignorance or just forgetting or not.
So Chantal doing something out of ignorance? Never in a million years. Why would she ever do something? Oh, Chantal doing something. If you can't tell, I'm being sarcastic because Chantal does like half of her speech out of ignorance.
Aware at all. I mean, you can prepare and research all you want, but experience is the biggest teacher, right? So I do edit things out of respect or just to avoid problems in the future. But public displays of affection are
like how you filmed in public and then that got the police called on you and then deleted a video accordingly, like that. Interesting.
Very big no-no. Even with the most loving married people, all men and women do not do that in public here with each other. If you do come here, even though you don't have to technically cover your head, out of respect, they do expect you to dress conservatively as a woman. So,
see, there it is. Technically, on paper, you don't have to, but they expect you to. Sure, that's not the only case of something like that there.
Covering your shoulders, covering at least, down to your ankles. I usually go out always in an abaya, sometimes niqab. I've been sometimes wearing that, but always in hijab. The niqab actually, it's comes to here and the air actually flows under it. It's not covered like a mask. So it's not too bad, and it just goes under this with an elastic. So it's actually not that uncomfortable. It's not really uncomfortable actually, and I'm kind of used to this. Sometimes it is hot, I'm overweight and I'm fully covered. So until, it took some getting used to, but I'm getting a lot more used to it. And being here in the winter is so much better. From what I'm told, I don't think I could stand a summer here, but yeah. All right, so that's about it for this video. I think I've said everything I want to say. I will be doing a lot more videos and a lot more videos talking about my experiences. I do have a weight loss video coming up. That will just mostly be me updating you on that topic in my life because it is a big thing in my life. And yeah, I'll just be coming out with that video at some point. So stay tuned. Also, we are going to be doing more videos on the couples channel. So I will also be doing some live streams while Salah's at work. So stay tuned for those as well. I really appreciate you guys who are still here. I know that every change I go through in my life, good or bad, I lose people along the way, and that's a lesson for me. It really teaches me who my real friends and supporters are, and I don't say that to try to shame people, but it's just a fact that people come and go in life, and people will, your real friends will be there through no matter what. So yes, anyways, lots of lessons, but I'll save those for another video. All right, guys, I've blabbed enough here. And again, very beautiful country in closing, and I'm very glad that I'm here and experiencing it with Salah. So, and you guys along on the journey. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye, masalama.
Alrighty, so that's the end of Chantal's video. From what I know, she has not given us a weight update as of time of recording this, and those live streams, Salah isn't even at work, and she is just losing her mind. She just barreled at FFG the other day, and, was being such a hypocrite, even though she was literally saying that FFG is a bad dog mom and probably abuses her pets, which is completely not true. It's just ridiculous what she thinks she can say and get away with when she does the exact opposite. It's kind of a case of Chantal being ignorant to the actual problems in Kuwait and the actual pervasive culture, even though it's not shown overtly in a lot of ways. Kind of making excuses for the country almost. And also thinking that certain things like freaking hospitality are unique to the Middle East when they're completely normal everywhere in the world. Yeah, not much to say. I said pretty much all of my piece during the video. So yeah, I hope you have a good rest of your holiday season. Have a good rest of your day, evening, whatever you're having. And remember that you're worth the space you take up in the world. Bye.